Or I just like leave it for a couple of minutes or something.
Right, you are. Okay.
Can you hear my wife pissing?
No, I can't. No, I can't. So, Tanya, I wasn't listening to that.
I can.
Oh, well, I hope
It's
the
good
listeners
job I'm not live,
didn't
Lon.
I hope the listeners didn't catch that.
Oh, I'm sure they won't have. Yeah, let me get right banners. Let's put the brand. Did you? Oh, that's what a thing I wanted to ask you. Did you see Jerry Croft's thing presentation on crop circles that I sent you? I think I sent it you.
I'm afraid it doesn't ring a bell, Jason. I'm sorry. Let's have a look.
That one. That one there. Look.
Oh, where is it? Hang on. I've seen that. Yes, I've seen that thing. That was the one that appeared last year during the lockdown.
Yeah.
Oh, that was yeah. Now that is weird. I mean,
there's a professor, a psychology professor from America called Jerry Croft, and what he does is he looks into corn circles, corn crop circles or whatever. I mean, it's not a fucking circle, is it? These things.
They call the name crop circle is stuck. But, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's me back. Anyway, good evening. Welcome to Raconteurs News. It is the 11th of March. 2021 already 20 what? Oh, May, sorry. Yeah, all right. Behind every good man there's a woman correcting him. Anyway, good evening to everybody that's there. I say hello to everyone who's in chat room so far. Chris Partridge, Dave Iron, Mark Westbury, Resi Tuber, and Kerry Duff. Good evening to you and anybody else that is here. I just wanted to say, what did I want to say? I wanted to say something. It'll probably come to me a bit later on. I should really write stuff down. It's just that my hands have not been very good, but I have been able to write stuff down tonight. Anyway, I've got a very good guest tonight. He is well, he don't really need any introduction. It's Ben Emlyn Jones, and he is here. Good evening, Ben Emlyn Jones.
Good evening to you, Jason. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm going well. Do you know, today's probably been the best day that I've had since Christmas.
I'm glad you're on the mend. I am. I tell you to everyone in the chat, I recognise some of those names. So Mark, Chris, and Kerry and Vi. Hello, everyone, and Bandit Buster and everyone. Dave Iron and Resi Tuber. Hello, everyone.
Vicotius as well. That's a good one. Good evening, Raconteurs. Evening, Ben. Evening, all.
Alistair Norman. Hello.
So it's been a strange time since we last spoke. We were due to speak in, I think it was January, weren't it?
It was a few months ago. Yeah, it was a couple of months ago.
I think it was in January. But then I had to cancel because I felt like dog shit. And my hands and everything, but we are here. We finally got him on the show, and we've got loads of questions to ask him as well. Good evening, Ben. Where would you want to start?
It's difficult to know where to start. I mean, the world is in constant flux at the moment. It's changing continuously. I don't even recognize the world as if you showed it to me 2 years ago. I wouldn't recognize it, with people walking around with masks over their faces. Things, all the things I'm talking about here, with the fact that this disease is supposedly running rampant, and we have to just lock down and regulate the entire economy and society to deal with it. We've got strange videos appearing showing things flitting around the sky, which no one knows what they are. There's a whole list of things we could talk about. There's very dodgy elections going on at the moment, which indicates that the democratic system seems to be failing. So take your pick, mate. It's like juggling.
Well,
It's a bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at the beginning of all this, you made a video and you said, "I'm not feeling very well, but please, it's not. I don't think it's COVID. I think you just got a cold or something like that, Ben." So, have you had any experience of COVID?
I believe, based on, I've never had a test. I mean, I've never had a viral screening or anything like that. But I believe, based on the very typical symptoms I had, that I actually had COVID-19. Yeah, I came down with it in March last year, and I think I must have picked it up sometime on my travels because I do travel a lot, and I'd been to Hull. I went to a conference in Hull, the Rawcon, which is very good.
You're lucky to come out of Hull with just COVID.
Well, I said, I said to Alan, the organizer, I says, "You realise you got in just in time, don't you?" And he says, "Yes." That was a relief because there's been no conferences since. But I went to Hull, and I had a lovely time, actually. It was fun. But I felt really awful when I came back. I thought I was getting the flu. I had a cough. But then, of course, I heard about this illness and I thought maybe it's that. And then I did get more and more sick, and I ended up losing my sense of taste and smell for a few days, which was a bit worrying. I mean, it does happen to me sometimes when I get a cold, but this was like for quite a long time. And I know some people like this, it lasts a couple of months afterwards. But it came back, and eventually I got over it. I never felt I was in any danger. I just sort of lay in bed, sort of shivering and coughing for a couple of days, and got over it. But I understand why there's some people who maybe with more vulnerable constitutions who would be in danger because of that. However, does it justify everything the government has done? I mean, everything the government has done is in response to this has been essentially what they like doing anyway, and using this as the excuse, such as hyper-regulation of the economy, the ability to control people's businesses, small businesses, etc., which have been shut down, allowing mega corporations to expand at the expense of these small businesses, the ability to control people's movements, control their daily lives through work and through play. They like doing this sort of thing anyway. So the question is, are they just taking advantage of this? Are they taking advantage? I mean, I believe the disease exists. Some people don't believe the disease exists. I think it does exist. But based on the casualty rates and the illness and the effect it has, is it justified? Is everything that's happened over the last year and a half really justified?
Of course it's not. Of course it's not been, because we've not seen the results that we were told. I mean, I remember Boris Johnson saying everybody has to get realise that they're going to lose somebody close to them. Everybody is going to lose somebody close to them before the time. This is what he said at the time when it first started, and it was always going to be about vaccines, weren't it?
Yeah.
About the vaccinations.
Of course.
I just don't know. I just don't know why what the economy being shut down has achieved for them, apart from putting more people into poverty.
Well, it has caused a massive economic hardship. It's caused the Britain's economy to shrink. Oddly enough, China's economy grew by 2% last year, despite all this, which is very interesting. But most other countries have suffered terribly economically. People have been losing their jobs. People have been put on furlough, which basically means they're not allowed to work, and they've been paid a fraction of what they normally do. And this, of course, puts you behind with bills and rent and things like this. So a lot of people are now in a lot of debt. I know a lot of people are in a lot of debt. I know people. This is really getting people down. So far, there's been no indication through the published journals that there's been an increase in suicides. However, that surprised me. That did surprise me very much.
Yeah, I mean, the suicide rate has got to be going up. I know people have committed suicide. You see it every day. There's always stuff. If you're on like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, I mean, I don't really interact, but I do scroll through and have a look. You can see that suicides have increased. If there are studies that say that it's not, again, like you said, I'm surprised.
I do question it for that reason, yeah, because we know that like people do experience emotional trauma from hardship. We know that when there's been other economic depressions, more people have been suffering from mental illness as a result. In this case, there's people who haven't seen anyone for months. We're a social species. We're not meant to be alone. Most people suffer from loneliness. There's people who haven't seen their family. There's a lady I know. She's got a grandson. She's like a 6-month-old grandson. She's never held him. She's never seen him. She's had to look at him through a window. And I understand the need to. I understand why you have to protect people from disease, just like you have to protect people from other diseases. I don't. If I get the flu, I won't go and visit my dad. My dad's 74. I won't go and visit him if I get the flu because I don't want him to catch it.
Yeah.
So I understand the need. If someone's old or they have an existing illness, I don't go and see it. My daughter's uncle is not very well. I keep out of his way if I'm ill. But I don't see what additional legislation necessarily is needed for this disease. This disease, which very strangely emerged in Wuhan, China, emerged in a single place. It all comes from a single place. It's been identified as the source. It's odd, that because the government are like the media are saying that it's ridiculous because there's this laboratory there which deals with biological weapons, which includes engineered viruses, right? And they think we're so stupid that they can point to this traditional market next door and they can say, guess what? The virus came from that market. Honest, it came from the market, okay? Whereas we know that, but then there's this virology laboratory next door where they deal with level 4 containment, which is very, very high containment, so things shouldn't be able to get out. But this is a highly infectious virus. I think it has the same infection rate as the 2.8. Is it the same as the common cold? It's going to escape. It may well have escaped in some way or another.
So you think that that this virus is as dangerous as they're telling us?
As the what? Sorry.
As we're being told, it's as dangerous as we're being told. I mean,
it's dangerous. It is dangerous in some ways. I mean, I got ill and I got very ill compared to. I mean, I'm lucky. My touch wood, my general health is lucky. I'm lucky to have quite good general health. But I had what to me I describe it as being like a very bad case of the flu, worse than usual, plus the additional symptoms of a dry cough, loss of taste and smell, things like that. And I have suffered things. I've not been quite the same since. For example, some things taste and smell slightly differently. It's not a big deal, but certain things taste and smell different since then. So yeah, it's an illness which can be harmful in some cases. But it's not like the plague. I mean, it's not like these science fiction stories where people, it kills half the people in the world and things like that. Mm. It's a nasty virus.
It's not Spanish flu, is it? If what we're told about Spanish flu is true, I mean, it's not Spanish flu.
No, I mean, Spanish flu is very interesting because Spanish flu they found out exactly what it was. I mean, when it came out, this was 100 years ago. Spanish flu emerged. They didn't have the ability to isolate viruses, but thank goodness for these doctors who keep things in pathology museums. They just keep the specimens just in case someone finds a way to look at them in a different way in the future. The Spanish flu was H1N1. It was the same as the 2009 swine flu outbreak.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it killed it killed probably more people than the war that had just ended, which they estimate was 12 to 16 million. Spanish flu probably killed far more than that. So maybe
we're not nowhere near that sort of number of cases, aren't we? Deaths this time.
I think that the thing with the Spanish flu is it emerged at a time when people were generally less healthy than they are now. It was people were just got the war to end all wars had just ended, and it was a war like no one had ever seen before in history, and everyone was horrified by it. So they were emotionally devastated by it. There were loads and loads of young men coming back with terrible injuries and mental illness as well. There was when wartime happens, of course, the economy naturally always shrinks. A lot of people were poor. A lot of people. Yeah, maybe the general decline of people's health caused that. I don't know, but I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, we get. I put it this way, right? Okay. So this thing has been used as an excuse. It's like we had practices with swine flu, bird flu, and all these other flus that have been over the years, and then this has been an exercise and also an opportunity. Like I said on the show the other night, each and every one of these the legislation that's going through Parliament, right, that's COVID related, will not be repealed after COVID's gone, but it will be used for something else. So, like I said, what they're doing is in Parliament, all this legislation, they're building weapons. They're building a load of weapons for a war against us. Then there's there's a new fence, a new super armored fence around Westminster. I mean, for fuck's sake, if we elected these people, you'd think that they'd be popular, wouldn't you?
You'd say the same thing about it's like the White House is exactly the same. It's like they're desperately frightened. I mean, it looks to me like they're terrified. I mean, you're right. Everything you just said is absolutely true. You ever heard the phrase? There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
Yeah,
I think that's a line from Yes Minister. I'll have to watch that series again, Yes Minister, because it's great. It's a great satire because it's about all these very weak, stupid politician, and he's completely under the control of this civil servant. It's really funny, but yeah, I mean, you see, this seems to be they brought out all this legislation, which they're not. They took, they say the lockdown's going to end, and it does seem that it seems to be relaxing for now, but they won't. They can't leave us alone. They can't leave us in peace. They have to have some kind of crisis at all times. So they'll go from one to the other to the other. And the really good documentary is Adam Curtis's Power of Nightmares, where they just say that he actually says it in as many words. The role of the politician today is simply to protect the public from danger, whether it's real, from various dangers, whether they're real or imaginary. And if there are no real dangers, the government literally they'll make them up. They'll conjure up fake ones because they can't exist. The government can't exist without that. They can't exist without some kind of crisis. Their whole legitimate role goes out the window the moment that there's no crises.
And we've had a generation of that, haven't we? I mean, if you're from, if you're born I was born in 1970. Oh, by the way, I did say on the last show, because the last show that I did, not the last one, but the one before, the Tuesday show, it was the day before my birthday, and I did say on the eve of my 52nd birthday, well, I want to correct myself, it was my 51st birthday.
So, don't add any more years on yourself.
Exactly. So I was born in 1970, and there's always been something, even although I can't really remember it, but I can remember having to go and get buckets of water from a tank that were at top of the street, because the water was switched off because they were all on strike. So in 73, in 70s, when they had the 3-day week and all that, I remember that a little bit, but that was, I think that was all set up. Then we had the communists, Russia, or Soviet Union, as it were, and then the Soviet Union went away when the people rose and got rid of Ceausescu in Romania, and then they pushed down that wall in Berlin Wall, and everybody, that were people. Then we needed another boogeyman. There always has to be a boogeyman. Or bogeyman, exactly. I said boogeyman, but it's a bogeyman, isn't it? That's what in Britain. But there always has to be one.
They can't live without it. I mean, it's like I think that I was surprised actually when I looked back and realised there was a pause of like more than a decade between really the end of the Cold War and the beginning of the War on Terror, and I think that's probably because the powers that be, the elite, didn't actually plan for the Soviet Union to collapse completely. They wanted to keep it going in another form. This is what the Rockefeller Institute member Mikhail Gorbachev, that was what his role was, and he failed in that result. As a result, the new Russia emerged out of the ashes. But so that was unintentional. But then, of course, we had like about 10 years when there wasn't really a major during the 90s was what happened in the 90s. Of course, there was the crisis in Eastern Europe with Bosnia. This was a direct result of the end of Yugoslavia, and then the ethnic wars broke out again, and I remember that was horrific. That was some of the worst violence Europe has ever seen. Took place during that decade. And then, of course, the big one, 9/11, the boogeyman Bin Laden came along.
I just want to stop you there. We had a couple in between, right? First of all, we had the hole in the ozone layer.
Oh, yes.
Then we had acid rain. Remember acid rain?
Well, yeah, I do. Well, it seems to have disappeared now, but it was for a while. It was like a big deal. I remember. But I think it's been replaced. I think they've decided to hang on the old carbon dioxide business now. I think that is their principal, boogeyman. And if you describe a boogeyman as a threat in the environmental world, they're just focusing on global warming or global climate change or climate crisis, how it's been rebranded. I don't know.
Yeah, they were acid rain. They were holding the ozone layer. They were acid rain. Then they were global warming, and then because they realised that the planet had been cooling since 1998, they had to change it to climate change. And we live in a climate that does change. And today, about an hour before we were on air, it was lovely, sunny outside, a lovely sunny evening, and then 15 minutes later, it's a thunderstorm.
That's Britain for you. And Britain is a bad country for judging climate, because we have a climatic norm, but the actual day-to-day weather rarely sits on that norm. It's always vacillating from one extreme to the other. I was the same today. The weather couldn't make its mind up. It was pouring rain one minute, sunny the next, and that's Britain for you. Now, there's signs of climate change around the world, for example, like ice melting in the poles and things like that. And so that has been happening. However, that's probably as a result of the warming. Now, what was the name of the guy who talked about this? One of old Ian R. Crane, the late great Ian R. Crane's friends. But he was saying that basically there's always a delayed reaction in terms of global warming. There was global warming, distinct global warming between about 1900 and 1940. When there was a 3-degree rise in global temperatures. This is when carbon emissions were like a fraction of what they are today. This wasn't caused by human emissions, absolutely no doubt about it. But then the sea, there's always just a delayed reaction with the sea, because the sea's water, the land is solid, the sea's water. If you put an iron bar in a flame, it'll heat up very quickly, and when you pull it out, it will cool down very quickly. You'll be able to pick it. You'll be able to put your hand on it within a minute or so. If you put a bowl of water on that flame, it'll take quite a long time to heat up, but when you take it off, it'll stay hot for quite a long time. There's this delayed reaction. You put your hand in the water a minute later, and it'll still be hot. It'll burn you. But a lot of the ice is sea ice. A lot of the ice that has actually gone, like in Antarctica, most of the ice melting has been sea ice rather than land ice, because it's actually the sea. The sea is reacting to that 1900s and 1940s warming.
Can we trust that? When it shows you a picture, I saw a picture on Sheffield online, I think it was yesterday, and it showed the picture, one taken in 1920 and one taken in 2020 of the same place, and it were I think it must have been Arctic, because there were mountains behind, and there's no mountains in Antarctica, so it must have been Arctic. And it showed one there were like a big glacier ice, and you could just see top of mountains. And then the 2021, you could see a lot of land, and you could see the entire mountains, and the glaciers has gone. Now, for me, it's easy to do that, because you take one picture in summer and you take one picture in winter. So,
yeah.
So I think that this melting, because also melting, how does ice melting raise the sea levels? I mean, it's not done it, has it?
Well, it doesn't seem to. I mean, Mark has just said David Dubain is the name of the guy. So thanks, Mark, for that. That's the guy who's been talking about the ice, the sea ice, and the water, the seawater. But yeah, the fact of the matter is sometimes ice does come and go. I mean, we've seen this not just in the sea. It's true that in the Alps, for example, some glaciers have shrunk and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that caused because of our industrial society? Is our industrial society responsible for that, and therefore needs to be regulated and sort of downsized through global legislation, through global taxation, through hyper-regulation, and through government control of the economy?
I don't understand how taxation would work anyway. I mean, taxation, it doesn't work, does it? I mean, first off, right, okay, I'll give my point on climate change, right? I believe the climate changes naturally, right? I don't believe it's man-made, okay? It's well known that when a volcano erupts, it pumps more carbon into the atmosphere than we've ever done since the Industrial Revolution. So the carbon thing for me is out of the way. What for me is the problem is plastics and things like these masks that are going to be in the oceans, because they're going to be sent off. They'll be picked up off the street here, and they'll be sent off for whatever they do, and they'll be sent to somewhere that will pay them. That they'll be paid to dispose of them, and they'll end up in oceans. Right, so if they really cared about the environment, the first thing they'd do instantly, they will ban single-use plastics.
Yeah,
with a view to banning plastic altogether as far as you can. But of course, the oil industry won't want that.
Well, exactly. The sad thing about this fixation on a natural gas that's a part of the Earth's atmosphere anyway, carbon dioxide, is turning that into some kind of pollutant, is that it's distracting people from real environmental damage. And plastic litter is a real problem. Plastic litter. I mean, we use more and more plastic now. And in the old days, we would use paper, for example. My grandmother told me that with shopping bags used to be made of paper. You used to get a brown paper bag to carry your shopping home in. Paper, if you put paper in the water, it'll dissolve within hours. It'll pulp. These plastic bags it can take centuries for them to break down. Centuries. Yeah. They're almost as resilient as glass. They don't break down very easily naturally in the ocean. Now, in the environment. Now, in some parts, especially in the seas, they've got these garbage patches, they're called, in the oceans. In the areas where the currents are neutralized, huge collections of plastics, millions of tons of plastic, everything from beer barrels to tiny microscopic fragments is there. These things have been found in the bellies of fish, of whales, of squid, seabirds, everything. And it's some seagulls are found dead with their stomachs full of this stuff. We were talking off the air about this ship that sunk off the coast of Cornwall a few years ago. There's still a couple of years later, there was foam and chemicals and stuff washing up on the beach, and the surfing industry, the people. Cornwall's a great place to go surfing. They couldn't go in the sea. They didn't dare go in the sea because of the plastic waste and the fear that they'd be poisoned. And that's going on everywhere. Do you know what? You're right. People just throw things away. But unfortunately, even though I try to throw things away in litter bins, some people don't, and they go into the street. I've seen disposable masks lying in the street, coof masks, all over the place. They're the same ones I used to wear at the hospital when I was a porter. The surgical masks. Then they're made of. They have paper to them, but they have like a plastic inside them as well. And they're going to be around. They're going to end up in the rivers. They're going to be washed down to the sea. And other countries such as China and India, where they have a huge population, and they don't have the same. They actually, in terms of environmental concern, they're far less stringent than we are here in Europe and North America in the West, and so they're creating a huge amount of rubbish at the moment right now. A huge amount. I mean, I know someone who went to India. A guy I know went to Kerala in southern India. And he said it's a disgusting place. You walk along, the main streets look they're always swept clean. They look really nice. But there's alleyways behind every house, going along the back of every house. And they are loaded up to eye level with rubbish in every single alleyway. Mm. And so unfortunately, I mean, the Indians, for their credit, they do a lot of good things. They're very interesting people. But they don't give a damn about it. They seem to just throw these things into the alleyway and they don't seem to care. And that's it. That's going to end up in the sea.
That's a cultural thing, though, isn't it? I mean, in this country, you would imagine that we've got this mask. You know, it'd go. Now, I've had for last. I'm finished now. It's my legs healed up, but I'd got a huge wound on my leg, and I were having nurses come in every day to look at it and redress it and things like that. And when they started wearing masks because of the COVID, my missus started finding masks at the end of my ramp. You know,
they were ripping them off when they left your house and just throwing them on the ground. Oh, good grief! That's disgraceful, man. That's you see, they're nurses. They should know better. When I was at my hospital, we had rubbish bins to put these things in, and the hospital was. Well, I'd like to say it was clean, but it wasn't clean because the cleaners were useless because the company that ran the cleaning services were useless. But I know that in the departments I worked in, you just rip them off, you put them in a rubbish bin. That's disgraceful. And it makes you look bad as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
People think you did it.
Yeah, and it's I won't even wear a mask. They mind took one away. I think they're. I think they're face panty pads, if you know what I mean.
I hate them. I mean, there's the shop where I do my groceries. There's like a guy standing outside, and he won't let you in unless you've got one or an exemption card. And I was thinking of getting like an exemption card because it's very easy to get them. But then I thought it'd be more fun to wear a mask with some kind of subversive message on. So I have a number of them. I got one that says COVID 1984. I've made them myself out of an old shirt. I've got one that says 2 + 2 does not equal 5, which is another Orwellian reference. And I've got a Q, where we go one, we go all. And I wore that at the shops today, actually. I was waiting for someone to come up and ask me what it meant, because that sometimes happens. And I get into conversations with people. But it didn't happen today.
Oh, well, at least you're getting your message across. Right, anyway, let me just break in here and just say, if you've just joined us, you're watching Raconteurs News. I've got Ben Emlyn Jones with me. We've only been talking about COVID for half an hour. We've got plenty of other subjects. I mean, we're probably going to stick on COVID because I've got a theory that I want to put to Ben as somebody who worked in the NHS. But I've got a message that I need to convey. I had a phone call earlier on, just before the show, from Super Leeds, and he wanted me to let Dinny know that he was okay. The problem is he's not in chat. He's having problems with his eyes, so he's not seeing very well, and he can't set up his new computer. But he is listening, but he can't go in the chat. And he said just to let Dinny know, because Dinny's been asking about him. So Dinny, Super Leeds is all right. And he's given me his St. Pauli flag. There we go. I know that's your team.
There is someone called Dinny there. I can see someone called Dinny in the chat.
Yeah, he's a jerk. Yeah, but Super Leeds is not in chat.
All right.
Super Leeds wanted me to tell Dinny that he's not been able to, because Dinny's been asking about him. He's not really been able to communicate. So, Dinny's Super Leeds' eyes are not very good at the moment.
Oh, okay. Sorry to hear that. Hope they get better soon.
Yeah,
Chris O'Rourke. Where we go one, we go all, says Chris O'Rourke. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I should get me. Where is my mask? Should I show you the mask? I've got it over here. Hang on a sec.
Go on then. Here we go. We've got Ben Emlyn Jones on the show. He's just about to show us a mask, one of his masks. We're talking about COVID. We're going to be getting into all sorts of things. The elections, last year's elections, Trump, the elections that have been going on recently. We're going to be getting into that as well. And maybe a bit of UFO stuff at the end. There we go. Where we go one, we go all. There you go. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what I wear at the shops. I've got I've got two more as well, which I sort of like. When I'm washing one, I use the other. But it's a good way. It's a good conversation starter,
Yeah, that's all you want. It's an elevator statement, as the AD used to say. You say something and you're stuck in an elevator with somebody, and you just say something, and then it perhaps make them think. Yeah, it's an elevator statement. So we can't, and we won't, certainly won't. We won't say anything bad about you doing the mask thing. I just prefer not to.
Yeah, I understand. It's only what I've chosen to do as a kind of like my own way of rebelling. You know, I could just get an exemption card. Right. It's just I find it more fun, and it's more. I find it's entertaining, and I've had some good results from it. You know, people.
Whereabouts are you anyway? Whereabouts in Britain are you?
Oxford.
Sorry. Oxford. I should have known that. I thought you were in Wales for some reason.
I come from Wales.
Yes,
with my name, with a name like Ben Emlyn Jones, I've got to come from Wales, haven't I?
Of course you have, yeah. No, it's Richard Deol lives in Wales, doesn't he? He lives in Newport, doesn't he?
He lives in South Wales, yeah. He comes from Newcastle. He's like a Geordie. He comes from sort of Newcastle area, but he lives in South Wales, yeah. That's where he does his. I think he does like his talks. Although he hasn't. He'll probably book some talks coming up. Actually, he's been doing like virtual ones, like everyone else, like myself, you know.
Yeah, but, it's usually around April, isn't it, when he does his tours and stuff or starts and he starts.
I bet he'll probably will do a tour before the end of the year. I'm guessing. You know, he'll probably arrange a tour. So yeah, that'll be fun. I wonder, interested to hear what he's discovered since. I mean, we've all been kind of like a bit ferreted away, and I mean, I personally have tried to make use of that as best as I can by doing lots of writing and lots of filmmaking and things like that. So it's been an opportunity. I try to find the opportunity in every downside. You know, I'm a bit of a glass half full kind of bloke. So I hope I've succeeded. You know.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course you have. Of course you've succeeded. You're still here. You're still around. There's many that aren't here. And I'm not talking about people that have passed away. I'm talking about people that used to do shows and just aren't here anymore. They just disappear. But anyway, what I wanted to ask you, I've noticed I'm a avid TV watcher simply because most of my day I'm sat on. I've got my new leg, but I'm not really very good on it at the moment. So I'm used to sitting and watching a lot of TV, and I've noticed there's a lot of adverts coming on for private healthcare. Now, I was wondering whether this was some way of getting private healthcare into this country rather than using the NHS, and the NHS being strictly for COVID only. So,
it could be. There's absolutely no doubt. I mean, the NHS has essentially been in an emergency state for the last year. I mean, these are things that I never actually did when I was in. I was 23 years a hospital porter in an NHS hospital, John Radcliffe here in Oxford. I did drills for things like this. We were continuously doing drills to preparing for the day when something like this would happen. It never did. However, the NHS has been in this emergency state since then. I'm still in touch with people on the inside who tell me what's going on. And what the result of this happened is essentially the decks have been cleared for action for COVID-19. As a result, a lot of routine surgery has been cancelled. A lot of people who turn up at A&E are referred to the community, so they're sent home basically. Or GP referrals are sent home rather than being taken as inpatients. It's quite likely that that's going to continue. I think that will probably continue. The NHS, there's a lot of inertia in the NHS. It's very sluggish to change things.
I had my doctor, when he couldn't find out really what was going on with my hands, he referred me to a hand and wrist specialist. That was in January. And I had a letter last week telling me to ring up to book an appointment with them, right? So I rung up and they said, oh, no, this will have to be done by them. I'll ring them and tell them that you've rung up and then they'll get in touch with you by letter and what have you. So I've been with our hands for half a year, you know what I mean? I'm without a leg. I'm without a leg, and so I'm really down to just one leg that'll do all. appendages, but it's taken them that long. And I think that and more of this, people are going to say, look, we'll go private. They're going to get insurance, private insurance. And then the NHS will probably, this is what I think, the NHS will probably just deal with COVID. Everything that's in the NHS that isn't COVID related, like, prosthetics and stuff like that, will be sold off private. Well, I think it is already, because it is, yeah. Blatchford, I think the company is. When I go in, it says Blatchford.
There's several of these tin pot contractors, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be something like that. I know that I've seen those ads too. I've seen ads popping up. I don't watch as much telly as you, but I've seen ads popping up everywhere for private health insurance of various kinds. And it's a lot. It used to be kind of an elite middle class thing, but I've noticed they're targeting it more people now. They're trying to get a wider number of people on lower incomes. They're looking for, they're creating basic packages for people on lower incomes, and if people are in a really bad situation, because I'm sure it's inevitable. There's some people will have died, not of COVID, but because they have had other conditions for which they haven't had the proper treatment. Inevitably, there's going to be some people who are very ill or even dead now because of that, because the NHS has not been able to cope with the strain. I mean, it's not put as much a burden on the NHS as people think. For example, the actual wards, the actual COVID areas of the hospital, they've never been, this idea they've been full to bursting, they've been half full at most of patients. The Nightingale hospitals that have been set up at enormous cost of billions of pounds have hardly been used. So the problem is, it's actually not the disease itself that's causing the problem. It's the government's preparation for the pandemic, the pandemic result that's happened. I mean, for example, in India, it's fair enough. In India, they have had a huge pandemic there, and the hospitals are not coping. There's been the fear that would happen in Britain. That's the fear, that the hospitals would end up like the ones in India, not having enough oxygen, not having enough drugs, not having enough beds and things like that, and people would die because they couldn't get the treatment. That hasn't happened yet.
But I mean, the India thing. All we've got is the explanation from the mainstream media, the news. We've got no independent. Is there any independent sort of people that are saying that this is going on in India? Because I mean, India is quite a prosperous, not for the people, but the state itself is quite prosperous. I mean, they've got a space program, so they must be, got enough money. So
they have. A lot of it's come from British foreign aid as well. But I mean, I know some people. I mean, I know some people who are doctors who say that they're in touch with doctors in India, and they say it is pretty bad over there. It is pretty bad. But the reason actually is because, as you just said, the nation of India itself is like an emerging superpower, really. But for most of the people in India, the majority, and has been throughout history, it's one of the worst places in the world to live. The poverty is incredible. I mean, the number of people, the number of beggars. Everyone who goes there says it's just beggars everywhere.
Yeah,
and the people, it's an absolute kazi for most people in India. Unless you're wealthy, and they have quite a large middle class, and they have an elite. But if you're not in that, it's an absolutely appalling. You live at a really nasty, brutish, and short life. That's those are the people I think those are the people who are suffering. Those people, the ones who are in hospital right now and are dying. And I think there's no doubt that's actually happening. But and I'm sorry about that. And people who can afford good healthcare in India can get it. There is good healthcare in India, but here in Britain, I mean, you mentioned. Can I just come up something you mentioned before about the NHS?
Yes,
it really doesn't exist in its original form anymore. It's rather like so much else that excuse me. There's a guy who lives above me. He plays the piano and he's just started, so you can hear some piano music in the background. The NHS doesn't exist in its original form. It's like a lot of other government activity. It's been essentially outsourced. There are the hospitals have been built by private companies like the infamous Carillion, which was infamous in the hospital community long before it became infamous in public life. And there's this, you go to these hospitals now, they're all run by this. They're built and run by this company, various companies. It used to be Carillion, now it's another one. They bringing contractors in to run services like since the 80s, and they've done a terrible job. They've run the service down enormously. These companies have lost most of the contracts they gained after 10 years of corruption. And the corruption is incredible there. They really are, But
so, I mean, when you said they've done a bad job, they haven't done a bad job, really, have they? For their own benefits, they've done a really good job.
Well, if you eat parasite, if you describe a good, if you use the word good and bad, describe how well they can parasite off the state and take as much taxpayers' money from the contract as possible, and doing the shoddiest job they can get away with, and spending a little bit extra, bribing the trust board monitoring teams to turn a blind eye, then they've done an excellent job. They have done an excellent job. I mean, it may be, I cringed when I saw on TV there was this scandal about hospital cleanliness. This is something I've been talking about for years and years. We all knew it was happening, and you got MRSA coming out, people dying of this superbug. It's all caused by the poor hygiene standards in the hospital. So, I mean, I was invited actually in 2006. I was invited to the 60th anniversary of the NHS. Celebration at the town hall. They had a big celebration, and the Lord Mayor came up and gave us a medal and things like that. And I went along to it. I was invited to go as part of the delegation, and I went along, but it was actually just a deathbed gathering. I can see at some point they're going to bring in some kind of like Medicare insurance system like they have in the United States, which will be a nightmare. But I think that's going to happen eventually. And as you say, the remaining skeleton, the withered skeleton of what used to be the NHS, will be used for emergencies like COVID.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think there'll probably be an A&E, and if you'll get a diagnosis at A&E, and if it's not COVID, then it all depends on your insurance, or like in America, you would have Medicaid, which there will be. They'll have to be, because the people won't accept anything else. There'll have to be some sort of Medicaid, but it's not going to be very good. In fact, it's good, like you say, it's going to be a nightmare.
It's going to be, it's going to be like you'll have to insure your body the way you insure everything else. And if you're generally fit and well, your premiums will be low. But if like yourself, you developed like long-term health problems, your premiums will start going up, and eventually you'll be a write-off. The company will just sort of like throw you out, and it's
I think I'd be a write-off already through 2 heart attacks.
Oh, it's through no fault of your own. It's sad. It's a shame.
But I'm talking about strokes. AD, I spoke to AD again recently. He's doing okay. He's getting a lot better. And hopefully I'm going to have him on very, very soon. Just so that everybody can hear him, and it's just getting to that point where he's confident enough. So he had a stroke in November. I don't know if you know.
I heard about it. I'm very sorry. Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about that, and I hope he'll be all right. I wish him all the best.
He's well on mend. He's well on mend. Compared to a guy who lives across the road from me, who used to be the bloke that did everything for everyone. He cut everyone's grass. He worked for council, and he cut everyone's grass, and he'd do stuff. He built the thing on our front and didn't charge us very much. Well, he had a stroke around about the same time. I think it was December, and his wife says he's not improving at all. He's just completely the same.
Oh dear.
So I've got this little thing, whereas in sometimes in the daytime I'll look out a window, I'll pull the net over me and on my wheelchair and look out the window, and if he's there, he'll look out the window and he'll wave, because I'm one of the few people he remembers, which is well, it makes you feel good, then it actually remembers you. Yeah, so I mean, we're in the right state in NHS.
It just shows really, I think, that the government has such, they really don't really see people as anything other than farm animals. I mean, they're either treating us as farm animals or children. That seems to be their attitude towards us.
Yeah, I used to say right when we first started this show back five years ago. God, when me and Andy were on, and I had this sort of like theory that what they did is they kept us in a perpetual state of adolescence, so we were able to do things, but also the silly petty things that kids do, we still do to each other. You know what I mean? Take football for an example. I mean, people will fight over just because they're wearing different colours. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Go on.
I was going to say, unfortunately, some people do act like adolescents, and they really become they get to be teenagers, and they never really progress beyond that. I mean, I know people like that, unfortunately, but most of us, we're an amazing species, and we're capable of enormous feats and enormous greatness, and it's amazing what we've achieved, even with this new world order breathing down our necks all the time, and this horrible lying bureaucracy that's constantly running our lives. And if you take that away, just imagine what we'd do then. Just imagine what we would do without that.
And well, imagine what we're capable of, and if there was no if there was no greed, shall we say, because that's what it is. It's greed that's killing us all. It's greed. And greed filters down. So you've got the people at the top who are the greediest. And then it all filters down. You get councils and governments, and they're all greedy. That's until we get rid of that and those people, and realise that what we are capable of, and that we don't have to be if I fail at something, it's not going to cost me my entire life. You know what I mean? I can try something, and if I fail at it, it's not going to do anything.
It'd just be nice to live in a world where you don't have these crises, these continuous crises that are weighing us down all the time. As we were talking about earlier, just imagine if that agenda just ended. Imagine if the government if they just said, okay, we're not going to have any more crises for a while. We'll be on stage. We'll be around just in case a real one turns up. We're not going to engineer any. We're not going to create crises just to give us a place in your lives. It would be an amazing world to live in if that was the case. I mean, for example, I was talking to Nick Colostrum. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he was talking about Russia. He's a lovely chap, a really interesting chap, and he was saying that what's happening now is they're trying to keep the Cold War. They're trying to sort of like start a kind of Cold War 2. They're trying to make Russia. They're trying to paint Russia as the bad guys. I mean, there's always these news stories coming about how horrible the Russians are. It's almost like the Red Scare without the Reds. They have they've got spies, they've got hackers, they've got poisoners, they've got dangerous they've got dangerous pilots. Oh, you name it, they've been doing it to us. For example, there's Alexei Navalny, this opposition politician in Russia. He was poisoned with Novichok, and he's now in jail. Apparently, he's in jail just for 2 years. So it's not a very long sentence. But this was all supposed to be that Putin and his government poisoned this guy because he was an opposition leader. It's just like they poisoned the Skripals, Sergei and Yulia Skripal here in England, and they killed this other woman in the process. And they poisoned this guy called Oleg Litvinenko.
Quite close to that.
It was all in Britain. So, and then they're saying, look, they're not only attacking people abroad, basic acts of war on foreign soil, they're killing their own opposition. They're trying to kill their own opposition. But Nick has been researching, and he's proved that Putin's government had nothing to do with the Alexei Navalny scandal. They didn't. This whole thing with Novichok was a load of rubbish. It's almost like they're trying to keep, because NATO still exists. You see, NATO is literally an enfant terrible of the Cold War, and you think like the post-Cold War era is now in its 4th decade. Why does NATO still exist? And the answer is it's been kept going artificially because they've set up a fake boogeyman. They've set up a phantom menace in the form of Russia. All this trouble with Ukraine, it's another part of it. It's all nonsense. And it's another way the government keep us on our toes with continuous. We lurch from one problem to another. It's like there's no peace. It never ends. I mean, Adam Curtis put it well. He says we just lurch from these crisis to crisis to crisis. They pass like waves of a fever, and then none of them we can never understand them, and they're gone before we even understand them, and new ones emerge, and we just sort of shrug our shoulders and say, "Oh dear," which is what the government want. They want us in that state.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, for a start. By the way, have you got a broom?
Have I got what?
A broom, so you can bang on ceiling and tell him to shut up.
So I'll mute when you're talking. Sorry, mate. It's Alan. He's not actually.
No, it's okay.
It's the flat above me.
I'm not bothered. Honestly, I'm not bothered. You don't have to mute. I'm quite enjoying it. Tell him he's got a fan somewhere in Sheffield.
A broom. Shut up.
But yeah, we've now got a lot of different places, so we can go from one to another. We've already got them set up. So now we've got COVID-19. That's been going for 2 years. We've not heard of ISIS. Not at all. Not at all. There's been nothing else. We've not heard of gas from Syria, and I think Syria and Saudi Arabia, didn't they have a meeting? And Saudi Arabia came on Syria's side. Assad.
There was an attempt to broker some kind of peace deal. Yeah. This was actually President Trump actually was very instrumental in this and trying to broker some kind of peace deal. There's now an attempt to break it down. It looks like the Empire Strike. This is all everything that's happened in the last couple of years is the Empire striking back.
Right.
It's basically all everything. But it's true. They don't want peace in the Middle East. They can't cope with peace in the Middle East. They can't cope with it. They can't cope with peace in between Germany and Russia. That wouldn't work. So because at the moment Russia has been supplying Germany with natural gas through this Nord Stream pipeline. They're trying to build another one to supplying Germany with natural gas, and NATO are trying to get Germany to stop buying Russian gas and start buying American oil and coal. Which is probably why we had all that crap in Ukraine, because I would imagine a pipeline would need to go through Ukraine to go to Germany. Well, it actually goes along the Baltic Sea, but it's that the Ukraine has been used. Ukraine has been used in this way because Ukraine is like this buffer state between Russia and Europe and the rest of Europe, Western Europe, and there was a plan to try and bring Ukraine into the European Union. Bruce Knight says, "All to divide and conquer, divert the mind. It's always worked throughout history." Well, Bruce, why would if a trick works, they're going to keep using it?
Of course they are, yeah. And
it's these tricks that works. They want to get back. They want to make sure that nothing like the 2016 effect ever happens again. They don't. What happened in 2016 was an absolute shock horror for the New World Order. With I think we talked on the previous shows about how within a space of a few months, the Illuminati just lost control. Trump got into the White House. The Brexit vote happened here in Britain, and they couldn't stop the Leave vote winning, and it was like panic stations. And everything that's happened since then has been an attempt to try and put that genie back in the bottle and try and put the stopper on and keep it down. I think the COVID crisis is basically their answer to 2016. This is their retaliatory strike to 2016, and it's probably going to go on in one form or another.
Yeah, well, of course it will. This. I can't believe how gullible people are about this, about everything really. Let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about election Trump.
Yeah, that's another. It's very much connected to everything else we've been talking about tonight.
Yeah, go on.
The President Trump, of course, was in a sense of he was president, and they had this election in November. Have we talked about this on the show before? Because it was as dodgy as hell. It was absolutely as dodgy as hell. There was
the previous election.
The election that took place in November last year. Yeah.
We've not talked about that. No. But
no, we haven't. Right. Okay. Well, it was President Trump, of course, was enormously popular. He was a very, very popular leader. Everyone. Of course, he had his enemies, and because he was so popular, he had he's the kind of bloke you either loved or you hated. A lot of people loved him, a lot of people hated him as well. But the guy who ended up supposedly winning that election was Joe Biden, who was this career politician. He's been a full-time statesman since the late 60s. He's this really old, very, very frail man. He's the oldest man ever to be US president. Trump was the second oldest, but Biden is actually 4 years older. And he's this guy. Apparently, was way ahead in the polls. He was like this popular hero that everyone loved. Everyone thought he was great. He was so widely admired by everyone. Yeah, at the same time, people thinking that doesn't quite fit. That doesn't quite fit with what we're seeing. It doesn't quite fit with the kind of viewing figures he's getting for his speeches. It doesn't fit with the number of people who are turning up at his rallies. I mean, he would get like the largest crowd he had were 2,000 people in Philadelphia. He had 2,000 people. Most of those were in parked cars because this was in the middle of the lockdown. You can hear them standing the horns of their cars. Trump campaigned far harder, and he was filling football stadiums. 40, 50, 60,000 people would turn up at his events. Yet we're supposed to believe that. The opinion polls kept saying, Biden is 10 points ahead of Trump. This is really, really weird because the US politics is notoriously close. Elections are notoriously close, and the US politics tends to be split almost 50-50 on everything. And the margin of victory and the margin of opinion lead or trail in US opinion polls is always very small. I think Obama got he got 6 points. He was 6 points ahead at one point. That's about as far as it goes. Then suddenly we got a guy who's 10 to 12 points ahead, Joe Biden, who's transparently unpopular. And then he wins. And then Trump himself, the president himself, came out and said this election has been rigged. Look what happened with these Dominion voting machines. Look what happened with the way the votes were counted, and there was these very statistical anomalies in the counts and things like that. This election is a fraud, and he tried to do something about it. I remember.
Yeah, I can remember watching when the results come in, and they have the picture of the America and all the states and everything, and for me, I just could not believe what I was seeing. And I'm not a Trump supporter, not a Trump supporter at all. But what I could see from what I'd seen, and not just on mainstream or on internet, on both, I'd seen that Trump were filling, like you said, stadiums and arenas, and when they were filling them up, and there were nobody who cared about COVID. There were nobody with, some people might have had masks on, but there were no social distancing, all like that. And the guy was obviously incredibly popular. I think probably the most popular president since Kennedy.
I've never seen anything like it with any other president.
Exactly.
So it doesn't quite see this disconnect has alarmed a lot of people, and to this day there are still people who are talking about Trump as if he's still the president. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he is. I mean, they're doing the Make America Great rallies again. Trump is sort of like he's still politically active. He's just set up a new website, which is because he was banned from Twitter very famously. That's never happened to a president before. And he's now it's incredible. You got even when he was still president during the transition period, he was He was speaking at rallies and things like that. That's never happened. You don't normally get US presidents doing that. So it looks like the United States appears to be very split now. The forces of globalism seem to be attempting to take back power, but they're supposedly. I don't think they're victorious. I know people are saying things like, "Oh, this is all part of the QAnon plan" and things like that. I don't think it is. I don't think it was part of the Q plan for Biden to become president. However, Biden and his team are not acting like they have a huge electoral mandate. They are crouching behind barbed wire, exactly like how you described Westminster earlier on. It's like a ring of steel around the Capitol Hill in Washington, in the same way there is around Westminster here in Britain. And that's not the behavior of people who have a huge popular mandate.
No, you're going to see. I mean, Colonel Gaddafi used to go on back at he was supposedly a complete wanker to his people. Yeah, he'd go on back at a Toyota truck, and people would be running behind him, wanting to just touch him. You know, that's someone who's popular, and he were a dictator. You know, that's somebody who's popular. But if you haven't put a ring of steel round, like the one at Westminster, which, by the way, incidentally cost £6.6 million. Come on. They just keep doing it all the time.
It's not what you would expect for example, in the American case. You would expect, there's Biden, there's Kamala Harris, there's Nancy Pelosi, there's Chuck Schumer and all these other people in this sort of globalist Democrat elite. You would expect them, like, basically to be walking around smiling and waving and doing the Lambeth walk up and down Pennsylvania Avenue, where, millions of their adoring fans will be cheering them. Instead, they have, like, the National Guard still surrounding Washington. There's still, I think, 4 regiments of National Guardsmen guarding the Capitol. They walk around furtively, looking over their shoulder, whispering to each other. As they're like naughty school children who are scared of getting caught. I think they're worried. And over this side of the Atlantic, we have we have the guy who I'm very disappointed with, who's Boris Johnson, because
Where's the gummage? Can't even fucking do his hair. How can he run a country? He can't even sort his hair out.
I know, it's like he may have started out as the British Trump, but as before he sadly left us, Ian R. Crane was saying on his Humanity versus Insanity series and his other podcasts, it looks like he lost control. He's lost control of the entire situation, and his latest. What he's been saying lately has merged almost seamlessly back in with the establishment. His position on COVID-19 has been absolute textbook globalism. So he's not British. He's not the British Trump. I think he might have been at first, because a lot of people are saying, "Told you so, Ben. We told you and you didn't believe us." But I don't accept that. I think he was the British Trump once, but then he tried to drain the swamp, but the swamp drained him. That's what's happened, unfortunately. So we can't rely on Boris, unfortunately, to anymore, which is a pity. He might find a way to get back into control. He may find that way, and I wish him luck in doing that. But so far, we have to. If he is like compromised, even if he's compromised unwillingly, we have to treat him as an enemy, because he's basically been controlled by the enemy.
Yeah, but he's still delivering in results in elections. Just this recent I think it was Middlesbrough, wasn't it, by-election, and Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, yeah, and Hartlepool has since it's been a constituency in 1974, it's always been Labour. And this is just a complete and utter turnaround. And I live in Sheffield, so I live in an area that is traditionally mostly Labour. And there's Conservatives everywhere, Conservative MPs everywhere. People have voted Conservative. I don't know whether they voted Conservative because they wanted Boris, because he said he would deliver Brexit. I think that's probably one of the things. But it doesn't, now that he's delivered Brexit, and it's not really the Brexit that we hoped for. We wanted a clean scrape, but we're still having to send ships out to Jersey for French fishermen. You know, so they're still under his spell.
I think a lot of people do see him as a popular leader because that he did not back down on Brexit. I mean, I know the Brexit deal is not ideal, and we've had a lot of trouble lately, as in the Channel Islands, like you said. That it was much better than it could have been. It was heading, I think, in a much worse direction, and Boris still managed to maintain his stance on that, and I think people are very grateful for him for that. But also, the Labour Party itself has changed considerably since 74, when whichever MP was elected at that time. They used to be popular with the white working class. They used to be sort of like the party of the white working class, as well as other people in the working class, non-white people as well. Now they've become essentially there's kind of woke Labour now, where the white working class, this is the basis of their former support. Labour essentially it's not that the electors have rejected them, it's that Labour has rejected the electorate. They tell you things like, they use words like racist, privileged, misogynist, uneducated, and even gammon, which is a horrible racist term. I mean, MPs say this. Diane Abbott talks about white people in disparaging terms and things like that. Eventually, if you insult people and say horrible things about them, guess what? They won't vote for you. QED. It's very simple, and I think a lot of people now are just fed up with that. A lot of not just white people, but I think all kinds of people are fed up with this attitude.
So we're stuck with conservatives. I think we are. I mean, someone said in the chat room that they couldn't believe you were endorsing Boris. I don't think you were endorsing Boris, were you?
No, I used to. I don't anymore. I used to, and I don't apologise for that. A year ago, in the last general election, I endorsed him, and I don't apologise for that. I think that was the right thing to do. I still hope that he can find a way to get back, because honestly, with the huge majority of the Tories have at the moment, if Boris could find a way to get back and be the British Trump, then the world would be our oyster. Britain would then be the vanguard of this force that could bring down the New World Order. At the moment, unfortunately, he's not. At the moment, unfortunately, it seems like the Tories are very much in control of the globalists. Boris is now, he's been pushed more and more into the position of being essentially manipulated. I don't know how they're doing it. It's possible they've got his partner and the baby. He's got a new baby about 8 months old. It's possible they're in custody. I don't know how they're doing it, but I wish him luck in clawing back the ground he's lost, but he hasn't had much success. I mean, he's basically parroting the same old as all the other people are on COVID-19. Promoting the lockdown, things like that. Trump in his last days of presidency the last days when he was officially president, was saying, we can't let this destroy the economy. We can't let this frighten us into not doing our ordinary lives, living our ordinary lives. We could take precautions, but we mustn't let it dominate us and overrule what we normally do. Boris was saying, yep, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, everybody. Just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Oh, yeah, it's another 3 months now. Don't forget to wear your mask. Don't hug in public. Rule of 6. And he was just bringing out all this rubbish, all this lies. And I thought to myself, Boris, what's happened to you?
And of course, the BBC have now got a page on how to hug when hugging's allowed. When is that? Is that on 17th? In it, I think 17th of May. How did they pick these days? I mean, they should just say, they can't go, oh, it's 17th of May. It'll be done then. It has to be done now. It should be boom. Right, that's it. Now we don't need this lockdown. You can. Everybody, but everyone needs fucking 2 weeks' notice.
It's. I mean, I went to the pub when it reopened for the first time. I went out and had a beer, and everyone was in the beer garden. You weren't allowed indoors. Luckily, the weather was nice, so we sat outside. But everyone was cheerful in that. But you couldn't do anything you normally do at a pub. You can't get up and walk around. You have to sit at the table. I couldn't sit at the table I wanted to. They told me to sit at this single table because I was on my own. And then the bar staff came out with like waiters and waitresses, and they serve you that way. And you can't stand up unless you're going to the toilet. You can't like walk around the garden with your beer. You just got to sit there, and it's like, and the beer was very expensive because I mean a lot of pubs and breweries are going bankrupt now, so they have to really overcharge everyone. Now, hopefully that will be temporarily, but you know my pint was like about £6 by even by Oxford standards. That's pricey.
Jesus Christ!
So I mean,
£6, Jesus.
I know,
Christ.
but then and now they're saying we're going to withdraw the lockdown a little bit at a time, just a little bit at a time. Just hang on, it'll be a bit longer. And I'm like going, can we really rely on that? Can we really rely on the people who put us in this jail to say we're going to let you out? They don't have any incentive, as you were saying at the beginning. They now have legislation which gives them far more control than they ever had before. This is they've actually done more. They've made more out of this than they made out of 9/11 in terms of state domination. Just think about it. Just think about what they can do.
I mean, like I said, these are weapons that they're storing weapons up. When you're going to go to war with somebody, right? They're storing weapons up. So these weapons are legislation. And the legislation, when it's put in place, when it's like, when the shit hits the fan, and this legislation's put in place, you know, there'll be amendments to it so that people, you know, coppers can use deadly force on somebody who may have got the, you know, they think has got the virus but won't come. You know, we're talking real serious shit here, right? And we're not talking about not being able to go on holiday, because that's just all that is just appealing to the part of your brain that wants endorphins and stuff like that, you know, like going on holiday does. So people are like, I rung my mum and my dad. I rung my dad. I don't speak to him very often. I don't talk to my mum at all.
Oh dear.
But I rang my dad up the other day, and right at the very beginning of this, right at the very beginning, he said to me, he rung me up and he said, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this virus?" Then I said, "Dad, it's not. Don't even give it a second thought." I said, "It's nothing." And he said, "Well, you know, because it's the first time he's ever come to me for advice, you know, because I'm known as lunatic."
Oh yeah.
So I said, "Look," I said, "Dad, don't get a second thought." I said, "What will happen is there'll be a vaccine, and then," I said, "whatever you do, don't take the vaccine." That was 2 years, a year and a half ago. I spoke to him last week. They've had fucking vaccine, haven't they? Because they want to go on holiday in June. Yeah. So, but what can you do? I said, "Dad, you might be one of the lucky ones, but you know, you don't know how long-term effects of this are." But that's the sort of thing that we're talking about, aren't we?
It's difficult, like if you've got someone close to you and they won't listen to you. I mean, it's because I would like my brother and my dad not to have the vaccine. I'd say to them, don't have it done. They both had it done. My daughter, luckily, is a bit more switched on, and she's not having it. She's not having it done, which I'm pleased about. But of course, the term vaccine passport, that was originally just like a joke. It was like a parody, because it was invented by us, people like us, critics of what we knew was coming. It was pretty obvious that they were going to go there. They were going to end up with some kind of system where those who are vaccinated will be allowed more access to post-lockdown facilities than unvaccinated people, and there would be this division within people, division within society. For example, they're already talking about it. I mean, in Iceland, for example, there's this video by this silly woman, an American woman who lives in Iceland. And she's going, you'll be able to come and visit this place if the Icelandic government are letting people who are vaccinated into the country. And I thought, it's like that's gonna happen more and more and more. And there is going to be enormous pressure on people who want to live ordinary life, who want to travel, who want to see relatives, who want to go to venues, real rock concerts and things like that. the government will say, look, you get vaccinated, and you can have some kind of identification on you to prove you've been vaccinated, which has enormous implications for civil rights. Yeah, that has enormous implications for civil rights. And then you'll be allowed to do things that people who don't have that won't have that. We won't have that. And so then now the term vaccine passport has become kind of official. The term that we invented, but your opponents invented, has now become, is actually being used by those who are bringing it in. And I'm like, well, how about that? That's a bit odd, isn't it?
Is it? It's not going to last long. It's not going to last long. It won't last long. I mean, you know, these countries that are not letting people that are vaccinated in, they're going to fold quickly enough when there's enough unvaccinated people that won't have the vaccine.
Well, that's the good news. I mean, the good news is that in a recent opinion poll, 35% of people in this country said they wouldn't have it done, no matter what. More than a third of people in Britain said that they would not have the vaccine. Now, if that translates into real life, in other words, if those people stick to a system like that, would become unworkable. There'd be too many unvaccinated people. Various industries would start protesting. Airlines, the organisation representing airlines would then wade in, and they have a lot of political clout. They really, really do. As do the oil companies who the airlines use as their clients. This is the thing. If you have a corporatocracy, which is what we have, instead of having everything controlled by the state in the form of communism, you have like a fascist system where the private sector is left intact, but is essentially given the job of controlling people. But the problem with that is you have a lot of people whose primary interest, they're willing to go along with the agenda when it suits them, but their primary interest is making money. And they're going to, at some point, they're going to say, look, this won't do. We're losing. We are losing too much money for the travel, all the travel industry. The various tourist industries in various countries are failing. There are too many people refusing this vaccine. You're going to have to let some of them onto the planes, otherwise, we're going to ruin our economies.
Yeah. Well, the example I'm going to use is this, and this is. I'm a Sheffield Wednesday football fan, and this was we're about 2000. Now, what happened is, if you wanted to go to away games, they said that you had to get a card, right? So that they knew who you were, and you had to show your card to go to away games. Well, I've still got mine, right? It lasted about 4 months, and after that, the clubs, because we've got such a big away following and a lot of people wouldn't buy the cards, the clubs put so much pressure on Wednesday that they withdrew it. Look, there's my Owls away card. And you see, Owls away card says under me, and official away card.
That'll probably be a museum piece at some point, Jason. You know, like those yellow stars, you know, from Nazi Germany. You know, you see them in museums. That'll probably be similar to that, because it's it plays a similar role as well, doesn't it? I mean,
it's got a little hole in it to tell them that because when they give them up, they had to give us money back. So when they give you your money back, they put a little stamp in. And I wish I'd not got my money back now. I wish I'd kept it, you know, as whole. I think it probably will be a museum piece at some point.
Honestly, people spend enough money. I know football fans have to spend a huge amount of money to follow the game. You know, the amount it costs to get in and going to away games and things like that. And so, yeah, you'll take any money they can give you back. You take it. But you know, that's what's good. That's what I'm encouraged by. I'm encouraged by people who are saying things like this and doing things like this. Now, it's very important that people stick to it. So if you're not gonna have the vaccine, don't have it. It's that simple. There's millions and millions of other people behind you. I'm sure the government will try and scare you into having it, but don't fall for that. Don't cave in because they try to scare you. Just laugh at them if they try to frighten you. Just say, bugger off, I'm not scared. You're trying to induce fear in me to make me do what you want. Well, I'm not going to accept that fear. So hopefully enough people will do that, and this trick won't work.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people, and I'm reading. So they're really pulling my team apart in chat box. Yes, we are
really?
terrible. We've just been relegated to League One.
Oh dear.
So yeah, but we did have a 6-point deduction. So for financial irregularities. So.
I found it actually very difficult to watch sport over the last year because I mean I didn't pay any attention to the Six Nations rugby, which I normally like very much, being a Welsh boy. You know, I just can't bear to see these empty stadiums. It's just painful. Yeah, the live games with the crowd. I mean, Wales, especially Welsh in the Six Nations. I mean, the Welsh rugby fans in particular really get into like the pomp and the circumstance and with people turning up with costumes and things like that. You know, it's like that's what it's. I can't enjoy the game without that, even if I'm just watching it at home on TV. I just can't enjoy the atmosphere. Just is not there, and I just find that unbearable. So I just didn't watch it.
Yeah,
football. I mean, football is, you know, it's the point of like live football is that you have this huge crowd of people around you cheering and chanting and waving flags and waving.
Well, wearing their team colours. Like you said, particularly the Welsh. I mean, well, the English when they're singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," you know, Welsh, I suppose, have got tons more songs than we have. So. Because from a quote from my my favourite politician, Alan Bastard, the Welsh are essentially a pagan race, only drawn to Christianity for the promise of a good sing-song.
Oh, that series was brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that series.
You should
watch it. If people haven't seen that, they're all. I'm really pleased to see how many of them are on YouTube from the New Statesman. Yeah. With Rick Mail playing this MP. It's brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely my favourite. Absolutely my favourite. He's my favourite bloke ever,
great
I think.
Guy. Well, you know, he's
a stage at St Pancras once. I ran into him and he asked me if I wanted a signature or autograph for it. I said no. I said, I don't care. I just the fact that I've met you, it don't matter. I don't need to prove it to anybody. So, and he said, and he went, "You are superb," and went off.
He wasn't only just very funny. He was. People didn't realise quite how switched on he was, but his last film was called One by One, which was it was actually a movie made by a lady who she did a couple of interviews. Actually, I don't know if you had her on your show, but
I've had her twice.
Yeah, I forgot her name now, but the film that's it. The film itself is outstanding. I mean, it literally is. It could have been made by you or me. I mean, the themes in the film. It could have been made by you and me. And Rick Mail is in there. He's so good in this. And if you look at his filmography, it's like it's his last movie, but on Wikipedia it's blank. There's no hyperlink to it because it's the film everyone wants to forget. But that's what he was in. And I'm sure, you know, there could be Rick Mail fans who are not like conspiratorial aware who will want to see that just because that's his last film. And the film itself is so educational because it talks about the 9/11. It talks about the New World Order and things like that. Yeah.
I mean, anybody, if you want to go back into Raconteurs, if you do a search on Raconteurs News for Diane Jessie Miller, I've done we did a couple of interviews, myself and Andy, I think. But it was mostly me because I'm a huge Rick Mail fan. So I was just, you know, I wanted to know everything. And she had some great stories about him and what he was like on set and how surprised. I mean, he didn't get paid for it. You know, he didn't get paid for it. Nobody got paid for it. And the thing is that if you watch it one by one, it just sort of takes the last 10 years, the 20 years. Like, because it's got images of 9/11 and stuff like that, and then it forwards to 2021 because this is where we are. Because it ends with soldiers marching up the street. Yeah, and that's really where we are.
It is incredibly prescient because that is exactly what's happening. We now have a situation where you can't. I mean, It's not quite as dramatic where at the end of the film you actually see people being shot in the streets. Well, you just hear the noise of people being shot in the streets. But you do have, like, for example, you do have people being arrested by the police for like walking in the park. If there's people who just like walking on the street and the police will say, "Where are you going?" In Australia, you have to wear a mask at all times out of your house, even if you're just walking. There's walking down the street. There's films from Australia of the police stopping people who are walking down an empty street. There's no one for hundreds of yards around them, and the cops will come up to them and say, "Yeah, mate, you put your mask on now." That's, to me, is insanity. It's clown world, and it's the kind of insanity that can only come with authoritarian rule, because these authoritarian states are all like that. There's no logic, there's no reason behind anything. They just do it for the sake of it. And I'd like to see an end to that, obviously, but I can't believe that it's going to be so easy just to walk out of this. The government is just going to let us walk away from this. I don't think they will. They're going to find some reason for keeping this control. As you said at the beginning, all the legislation is on the books. There's no sunset clause on any of these new acts. They're there until they're repealed, basically. And how many people in Parliament are willing to repeal them?
Well, nobody does. I mean, the governments vote, the oppositions vote against government, against acts in one fucking parliament, and then they win power in the next parliament. They don't repeal it. They don't. Surely you would think they'd repeal whatever they were against. They'd repeal it, but they don't, because it's just an act. It's just a party. But I think they thought the act was over, right? And I'll give you the 2016 Brexit and Trump, but I'll also stick in as part of that Corbyn getting in Labour Party, because if Corbyn had backed Brexit, he would have had a landslide. But he would not, because he was pressured by the Blairites and all that in the Conservative Party, and it seemed like a great opportunity that were missed because he would have then, once he's in power, he would have then changed the Labour Party to what he wanted it to be.
Jeremy Corbyn is been around. He's a backbencher since time immemorial. He was first elected in 1983, I believe, and he was actually part of the Labour Eurosceptic team behind Tony Benn in the 80s, because Tony Benn actually was totally against. He saw what was coming. That Tony Benn in 1973 said one day if this goes ahead, there'll be a United States of Europe. He said that's going to happen, and Corbyn was a part of this team. He was only a young activist in those days, but he was a part of this tendency within the Labour Party. He could have just. Why didn't he just stick with that policy, the policy that he'd been supporting his whole life? He becomes Labour leader, and suddenly he reverses it, just like Boris Johnson has done as Prime Minister. It's like they turn into different people. They often backtrack on everything they've previously gone along with. And I think it is because enormous pressure is put on them. Carrots and sticks are thrown their way to try and make them do a certain thing. And
but wouldn't you say? I mean, Corbyn used to be an activist with Tony Benn, and he used to get arrested often at demonstrations, and he used to be a great supporter of Palestine and. All these things, anti-Europe, everything, and he suddenly gets this glorious place, and he is the leader of the party, so he should dictate policy. So all he had to do was say, "We're back Brexit. We're going to get Brexit done." That were it. Then he would have got a landslide, because he got all young students and everybody. And anybody who were 18 and they were going to vote Labour, and they didn't vote in the end. It all fits up, and it were all based on Brexit. He had an opportunity. We had an opportunity to remove the filth.
Labour are still paying the price for it today. for what happened, because Labour split. Of course, there was the Gang of Seven and these people like that, and they all split away. They tried to accuse Corbyn of being an anti-Semite, I remember, which is absurd, and it's insulting. But they still accused him of that, and they eventually end up with this horrible, slimy figure of Keir Starmer, who's really one of the most repulsive people imaginable. He not only he persecuted Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader, out of nothing but pure spite. I mean, it's like the Trump impeachments in the United States, the two impeachments against Trump, which were pure, it's absolute wasting taxpayers' money to just out of sheer bloody mindedness. And Starmer did the same to Corbyn, and Starmer, of course, is really a horrible figure from the establishment. He was actually Attorney General when the initial investigation into Jimmy Savile came along. This was before Savile died. Now,
right.
What would have happened if he pursued that investigation? Well, everything we know about Jimmy Savile could have come out years earlier. We could have actually seen the guy in jail. He could have actually faced justice. Now, Starmer was Attorney General. Did Starmer kibosh that investigation? You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, Keir Starmer's it's just Blairite through and through, isn't it? That's what he is. And I think that the Labour Party, right, the members of the Labour Party and people that vote Labour can see that he's only Blair. He's only like a second-rate Blair, and so they remember what they got with Blair, with war and shit like that. So even people that are Heartland Labour are turning their backs on them because they see anyway. Who doesn't want to see what's his name? Oh God, that scarecrow. Wurzel Gummidge, yeah, they prefer to have Wurzel Gummidge as president. Well, president. I mean, he is really, isn't it? I mean, look at Royals. Did Queen get out today?
She made a speech today. Yeah, I think she opened Parliament or something.
Yeah, I think she did. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't blame people for a lot of former Labour voters turning away from them. I mean, they have these. The party itself is so split. Then you get this horrible slimy person running it, and all he can do is persecute the former leader for all kinds of trumped up charges. And at the same time, they say to you, they say things like privileged white racist scum and things like that to people who work down the mines all their lives, or who are on the minimum wage in some kind of stacking shelves job or serving coffee job. Who's going to vote for that? Are you going to vote for who on their right mind will vote for people with that kind of attitude? Oh.
Well, what people are. I don't want to say simple, but the simple thing is what people will always do, right? So if you're really pissed off with Labour and you really want to you really want to kick your foot in, but if you look at all the other candidates, you know that your vote's just a waste because it's either Conservative or Labour, particularly in that area. I don't think Liberal Democrats have got anywhere outside of South West. So it's either Conservative or Labour. So they pick Conservative, and they don't really know what they're doing. I mean, and also there's the added bonus that they can say, well, it weren't just me, it were everybody. We all thought the same thing,
Yeah, it's the dog and pony show, which I think is becoming more and more obvious every day. And I just hope that E-Man, hello E-Man, Michael Foot, is that the guy you meant? The scruffy guy, Michael Foot? He was Labour leader in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
He was always walking around in like a duffel coat or something.
He was a Columbo of Parliament.
Yeah, but yeah, it's it's the dog and pony show is becoming more and more obvious, and the powers that be, the deep state, they're having to find more and more creative means of maintaining the illusion which they have been maintaining. And they are very resourceful. Don't get me wrong. I think they're not going to go quietly. This is not going to be an easy ride. But I feel encouraged. I feel encouraged by everything that's happened, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's been superb. Things I never imagined would happen. It's been amazing. I say there's the Brexit Trump phenomenon. There's things like that. And you have like the UFO stuff as well, which is really quite remarkable. I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. I really can't.
It is quite interesting. It's like a soap opera, isn't it? That's folded out, and you're involved in this soap opera. Well, you try to stay away, really. But
it's like EastEnders without the depression, without the demoralisation.
Without the depression, Jesus Christ.
EastEnders is designed to EastEnders, I think, is designed to break our spirit. It seems every single storyline is so damn annoying and so cringeworthy and so was it Andy Thomas says it? Everything's designed to break our spirit, and so my nose is itching. And EastEnders seems to be every single storyline seems to be along those lines. I can't bear to watch it; it's just awful.
Oh no, I've not watched it for God knows how long. My missus used to watch it when we first got together. I soon put a stop to that. Richard, our friend, you know him better than me. Our friend Richard D. Hall says watching EastEnders is like having an open sewer going through your living room.
It really is, yeah. And Richard said that about all television, and he's right about 95% of it. I don't actually own a television set. There's one in my house, but the other two guys watch it. I don't. I hardly ever watch it. It is 95% of it is awful. 5%, the 5% worth watching always ends up online, so I don't bother with it. I mean, it's ironic, I think, Jason, because I remember when I was a kid, television was like a little box. It was a small box in the corner of your room, and you had like 4 channels. I remember before Channel 4, there was 3 channels. Now, a TV, it's a high quality image on a screen that could be the size of a wall. There are thousands of channels now. More and more money and more sophisticated production is put into television than ever before. It's on the scale of Hollywood now. Yet the quality, the quality of the productions has plummeted compared to like when it was just technically much more simplistic. You used to get really good programs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Worth
watching. God, yeah. I remember sitting on. By the way, let me say hello to Apple Charlotte, who's just got here late as usual.
Hello,
and congratulations on her engagement as well. Hope you'll be very happy, and all the best for the future to the pair of you. So, Apple Charlotte. Who has got herself engaged.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but TV. Look, I watch a lot of TV, but I watch the old, the Bill.
Yeah.
I watch old episodes of that. Oh, lightning. Just had lightning.
Oh, dear. All right. I saw it flash, yeah.
Did you see it flash?
Yes, I did.
Lightning. Well, I'm saying, and I watch old. I used to watch. I've given up now because it was making my life so that I were running my life around TV shows. I used to watch old Emmerdale Farm, which were from like 20 odd years ago, and old Coronation Street, which were from like 20 odd years ago. Time when I used to watch it, when Coronation Street were funny, when it had Reg Oldsworth in it, and and Spider, and they were, it were funny, and it had. Oh dear, again.
I saw it again. Yeah, I can't hear any thunder yet, but
there is a rumble of thunder. So we might.
I remember I was going to say like the TV, if you watch TV now, the thing to watch is like UK Gold or one of these other channels which shows old programs. Yeah, there's comedies like Faulty Towers, which were really, really funny. And like, they were not only funny, they were the people making them. You could sense that they felt they had a free rein to write about whatever they wanted. There was none of this constraints of political correctness like you get today, which basically means that what you find is that modern comedy shows in particular are just so unfunny. They're so unfunny because the comedians are scared of offending people. If you're going to be scared of offending people, then you're not going to be funny, because comedy, by its very, the best comedy is irreverent. That's what's so funny about it. It's irreverent. And your Faulty Towers now, with Basil Fawlty, the main character, doing the Hitler salutes as he's walking around the dining room, that wouldn't be permitted today. That would be banned. The political correctness goons would come out and said, you can't do that. It's racist, sexist, homophobic, everything else phobic, and everything else ist. Get rid of it.
Well, you see, you got some of these whatevers saying that Only Fools and Horses is racist, it's sexist, it's this, it's that, it's other. Now, if they banned Only Fools and Horses, what would be on UK Gold on weekend? Because that's all it is. Every day, 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, is just Only Fools and Horses.
That's another example of a really great comedy series. And there's also, we mentioned Rick Mail earlier on. We mentioned One by One. He's done some very, very good non-satirical comedy as well, like Bottom and The Young Ones. There's nothing political about them. They're just but they are hilarious. They're absolute joy to watch, because he's such a good actor. He's such a good projector of laughs. And he and Adrian Edmondson are such a good double act that I just can't get it. I can't get enough of these kinds of things. And they lift your spirit. They break your spirit. Someone says, Bandit Buster says here, all soaps are now misery projectors. They most certainly are. And most other TVs as well. Most comedy, most everything else is like that now. It's designed to make you feel down. And it used to be, there are programs that actually built you up and made you, enlivened you and inspired you. And now they're just bloody gone, haven't they? They're just out the window, which is why I don't watch it. I can't bear bloody watch. I can't bear to watch it. I went round to my daughter's house a couple of months ago. She was there with her boyfriend and their housemates, and they had on, I think it was EastEnders they had on. I didn't watch much of it. It was some either that or Hollyoaks or something. And I was like going, it was literally exactly as Richard D. Hall describes it. It was like there was an open sewer, and I could almost stench it. The negative energy coming off that little box in the corner of the room. Then they had like a small TV was like palpable. I could almost feel it physically, and they were just sitting there. My daughter, luckily, is a bit more switched on. She's like she can, because she can see a lot of things I can. She doesn't fall for it. But the others were just sitting there vegetating. They had cans of lager in their hands. And they were just sitting there going, drinking and watching this stuff, and they look like people in a hypnotic trance. And it was the usual thing with people shouting and screaming and breaking down and crying and things like that. And I'm like going, oh, gee, help me. And I said to Louisa, I says, how can you put up with that? Did you get fed up with it?
But also what it does is, in these shows, because they want ratings and stuff, they're always backstabbing and cheating on each other and stealing from each other, and it's all making it. Ooh.
You look so cool there, Jason, because you're like in the dark and you look really mysterious, and there's this lightning going off behind you. It's great. It's like some kind of gothic horror. I expect to see Christopher, what's his name, like Dracula coming out of the corner, I'm just the old butler.
Oh dear. Only Fools and Horses is triggering to mentally challenged horses called Trigger. It says a made-up name backwards, and it took me ages. I never caught that. Did you ever seen that? Iman Pudama.
What's Iman? What's his name backwards? E-Man says here, I see the thing about only fools and horses. Yeah, triggering to the mentally challenged horses called Trigger. There's a character in there called Trigger. It's really funny. Trevor Lloyd Pack's character. And he's like, oh, all right, Dave. He thinks Rodney's name is Dave all the time. We never find out exactly why, but he's so funny. He says,
I'm going to open window, see if you can hear thunder.
Oh, cool. I love Trigger's broom. Do you ever know the joke about Trigger's broom? Trigger's broom is a shipper thesis. You know, this idea of a shipper thesis from ancient Greece is that there's a ship and people keep replacing different parts of it until none of the original's left, but it's still the same ship. And Trigger's a road sweeper. He's got a broom. He says, I've used the same broom my entire career. I've only had to change the handle 3 times, and I've changed the brush 7 times. It's the same broom.
Yeah. That's when he got that's when he gets he got a medal off of Councillor Murray, and Councillor Murray's a black woman, and there's a picture of him and Councillor Murray and him holding his broom, and then he goes, here's a picture of me getting me medal. Look, that's me.
Ooh, I heard the thunder there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the Kathy Tyson. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, that was when they were dressed up as Batman and Robin. I remember.
Yeah. And he gets a medal as well. Yeah. So while we're we've been on nearly 2 hours. We've not talked about UFOs. What's new in the UFO or disclosure?
Too much to fit into the time we've got left, unfortunately, Jason. But I mean, it's only 2 hours is not long enough for us to talk about everything that's happening.
We can continue as long as you want.
All right, I will. I've got to go actually at 10. I've got things to do, but
right, okay.
Yeah, but to give you a summary, there's more and more material sort of leaking out of the government. There's more things available, more information available now. For some reason, I mean, there's several theories about why that is. Some people say it's a genuine drive towards disclosure. Other people say it's disinformation. Either way, the policy towards the way people treat UFOs, the way the relationship between the government and the UFO issue and how they project it to us has changed. It's changed completely after 70 years. In 2017, the 70-year policy, which was summed up by the Twining memo, official ridicule and denial, changed and became something different. It became there's these things available now. They match the kind of evidence that's been around since time immemorial, and people are now seeing them. It's been published and they're widely used. It's amazing. It's amazing what's happening now. Where it's going to go now, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go from here. But it's funny that we've just gone past the 20th anniversary of Stephen Greer's press conference in 2001, May 2001. There was a press conference in Washington, D.C., where all these witnesses came forward and they said their piece at the National Press Club. And I'm sort of like I'm thinking to myself, that's amazing. 20 years later, it seems like it's just starting to bear fruit after a long, quite a number of wilderness years.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to know more.
It's always going to be difficult, isn't it? When you're talking about issues like that, it's always going to be difficult. I mean, what would the reaction to disclosure be?
Well, this is an interesting question, because the government are convinced we would panic, because the government think we're always going to panic. I think this is kind of the way they regard us. It's kind of children.
Modus operandi.
Yeah, they tend to. There's people not necessarily part of any agenda to suppress the truth who just have such a low opinion of most other people that they've essentially reduced us to the level of children. We've seen this with the COVID-19 thing, with lots of other things as well. And they says we can't. Well, Margaret Thatcher supposedly told Georgina Bruni, the journalist who wrote a book about the Rendlesham Forest incident, you can't tell the people. And this was the title of her famous book on the incident. There's of course this is going to continue. There's a lot of people saying that at the moment. There's all kinds of reasons why there's the truth that is actually known about the subject might be quite frightening. It may be that they have to admit that, for example, disclosure with a capital D would involve things like there's these creatures, they can invade our airspace, we can't stop them. They can abduct people, we can't stop them. We have we've found a few of them when they crash, and we even know we've worked out how they operate. We haven't allowed you to use that technology. Sorry, it's not an easy situation to play devil's advocate. It's not an easy situation for them, you know. It really is not.
No, I don't suppose it is. I mean,
if people are interested in this subject, then I can't do better than recommend this book here, Roswell Rising: A Novel of Disclosure by me, Ben Emlyn Jones. It's a story. It's a story. It's not real, but I imagined what would happen if we got the truth instead of lies, and it led to an imaginary scenario that led to that book. And I've written 2 sequels to it, so check those out. But it's a suitably spooky evening now with darkness and thunder and lightning and going on.
It is. I can hardly hear you because it rained.
Oh right, so it's
and thunder keeps coming, so I think we're there.
Let's see if they come out. We had a bit of thunder earlier on today. I don't know if we're going to get any now, but
well, we had some earlier on today. We had a little bit earlier on today, and we had some yesterday. Do you know what? I think it is. It's hard.
Could be. That's it. I mean, you see, weather can be created and it can be prevented. They can create droughts. They can create rainstorms. I mean, they've done it. I mean, that's a big subject as well. You know, we could talk for 2 hours on, but yeah, it's provable that.
Well, I don't think it's stopping. Oh no,
I don't. It just went again. Yes, thunderstorms are great if you're indoors and in the dry. They're brilliant. I love them.
Yeah, they are. We don't get enough in this country, I don't think. We don't get enough good thunderstorms. Ones that, when I was a kid, you used to get a thunderstorm, and then my mother would unplug aerial from back at telly so that it didn't blow up. Unplug everything in the house, and then open back door.
Oh, yeah.
Have door open so that it's something to do with static or something or other. They
always said if it hit the aerial, it would like blow up the TV and kill everyone or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very, very better times though. Better times.
Yeah.
Even though they had really, really scared. I'm sorry. I'm sort of assuming you're around about the same age as me. Like looking at you, you're probably about 10 years younger.
I'm sort of in the same ballpark. I don't want to say exactly, but I'm in the same sort of ballpark as you. And I what you just said rings a bell. You know, like the TV with the aerial in the back and some of the programs and things like that. Yeah, it was some great fun. That was great fun.
Yeah, the public advice videos, films. Remember them? Don't let cross-ply aerial tyres on same axle, otherwise it'll flip over or something. They showed you a car flipping over.
There was the cartoon of the cat and the boy, do you remember? Charlie says, oh, use the Pelican Crossing. I'll tell you what, the school used to mess with my head at school, though. I mean, I hated school. I mean, really. I couldn't, when I left, it's only when I left I realized how awful it had been. They showed like this thing called Threads, which was a horrible, like dystopian futuristic story about nuclear war. And they showed that to me when I was like 13 years old, and it freaked me out. You can get it on YouTube actually, and I've watched it since, and it's bloody grim. It's really depressing. And they showed us those protect and survive, those nuclear war things. Like these nuclear full warming things, and it was, of course, that ties back to what we were saying earlier with they're using the fear, this fear of nuclear bombs.
Sorry,
mate.
go on.
I was going to say the fear of nuclear.
We're based in Sheffield.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it was set in Sheffield. That's right, and the city was destroyed by this bomb, and the people just like they just hang around dying and getting sick, and it was extremely grim. We were like shown that when we were like 13 years old.
At school?
And, yeah. I think that the
people
threat of
show
nuclear
me at
war in the
school.
Cold War, both sides in the Cold War benefited from that, you know, for the fear of the enemy.
Well, they all did, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to think. You've got to think that anybody who's going to launch a nuclear weapon against another nation, like say Russia did it to America, you know that they're coming all the way back. So
it's insane, yeah.
It should. I think it's calming down. It should sort itself out. Anyway, we've done 2 hours, Ben.
It's been a good show, mate. It's been good. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. And
I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
There's been some great comments. I haven't been able to answer all the comments in the chat or address them all, but there's been really good people in the chat box. I've been watching it, so thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, can you hear that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Ben. Thanks to everyone who's listened. I'll be back on Friday or Saturday. I think it's going to be Friday this week for After Dark, and I'm going to have Super Leeds with me. So look forward to that, and he'll be able to answer all your questions. Well, he might be able to. He might be just too pissed, but never mind. It's coming on anyway on Friday. So he's phoned me up earlier on today. If you missed that, he's phoned me up earlier on today. He's just got a problem with his eyes, which is why he can't do the chat, go in the chat. So that's why he's not appeared to not be about, but he has been listening. Anyway, thank you, Ben. Anything you want to plug? Let's plug your shows, plug your podcast.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I've already plugged my book. I thought I'd get that in there, but I've got a whole list of websites you can go to. Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. That's HPANWO. If you'll find them all, if you just search for that. And I've got like my own radio show, which Jason has been on. I've got my YouTube channel, and I've got my fiction works as well. Some of them online, so check those out.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming along, and thank you to everybody who has been in the chat room. Great chat tonight, as Ben said. As always, I mean, you're always great in the chat. Thank you very much. I'll see you on Friday night, 9:30. Do not be late. Me and Super Leeds. Take it easy. Fucking hell, did you hear that?
That was a great thunderclap to end the show with, wasn't it?
Fucking God's fucking having a go at me.